And we're live. Welcome to Tint Wisdom number 37. Tonight I am joined with my wife, Betsy.
Hi, everybody.
So, first things first, we'll make sure the audio sounds good because we're not used to actually doing these with somebody in person. So, we'll make sure we're fully set up. And then we'll move into today's topic. Today's topic, appropriate for our guest today, is I wanted to discuss what it was like for us to work together in a tint business. It was a fast-paced growing business. It was a stressful environment for sure. And since it's a topic that a lot of tinters face working with, whether it be their spouse or family members, or even friends, and even just people that you meet that become employees and coworkers, how we all work together. I think there's always opportunity to learn from each other, learn from each other's experiences, and in this case, I'm very grateful we made it out alive. And I'm excited to answer any questions that anyone has for Betsy or for myself, and we'll jump in. I'm just going to pull up the chat now just so we can see any questions. And while I do that, I do want to mention our Facebook. Our YouTube channel. We put up a new video. We put up a whole new playlist on YouTube on our channel, and the playlist is called Tint Wiz Tutorials. And we got the first tutorial up. It's scheduling related. It's about a minute long, and it's going to show you just from the very beginning, zero contacts, how to go ahead and schedule somebody. It's it took in the demo about 53 seconds to complete, and that's me with taking my time and doing it from a desktop. If I do it from my phone, it's a lot faster. And you're still talking about under a minute. That includes the text message and email confirmation that gets sent to your customer automatically. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe, you check it out, because these tutorials, we're going to be dropping multiple tutorials per week, and it's definitely a fast track to being efficient on Tint Wiz. So let me get those comments up, and then we can get started. And do you want to maybe tell everybody why we're matching?
Sure, we always match every day. I'm just kidding. We got these shirts at SEMA last year, I'm sorry. And yeah, they were on sale. I think they were like $10 or something.
SEMA like 4 months ago.
Yeah, like two for like $10. So we couldn't pass up a good deal.
Yeah.
And they had shirts that
So exactly what happened was we had tickets to the event, but we didn't want to wait in the line. So we snuck into SEMA, and we were sneaking in from like auditorium to auditorium, and then we finally got busted. And when we got busted, we kind of had to like pretend like we were heading towards the exit. So we went into this clothing store where they were selling SEMA merchandise, and then to our surprise, it was actually like on sale. It was super cheap. So like she said, it was like 2 for 20 or 2 for 10 or something just ridiculous. So we got them. They're actually both females. I found that out because of the side where the buttons are. So but you'd never know. So yeah. So Rob Oranges, thanks for joining. Rob said, "Hey Betsy, great to see you on. This is a nice topic. I see a lot of husband-wife teams out there trying to run their business. Sadly, a few have blown up over the years." So
hi, Rob.
So yeah, that's the blowing up's what we're trying to avoid. And sometimes I've seen comments like my wife wouldn't want to work for me based on how I treat she's afraid I'd treat her like an employee and things like that. And those are, I think, good times to reflect and go, well, if your wife doesn't want to work for you and she really cares and understands you and actually loves you, and sleeps probably in the same bed with you, but she doesn't want to be treated like you treat your employees, then that should be like a wake-up call to how are you treating your employees. I can understand, before we even get into this, the obvious stresses and the things that actually kept me from wanting her to be involved in the business. But at the end of the day, when done right, I think it is a formula for success. So first and foremost, the business was started, I would say, about a year and a half before Betsy came into the picture at work, right?
Yeah.
But before that year and a half, she was always in the picture, because when I left for work, when I got home from work, work came with me. So I feel like she had her she had her understanding of the business, and she had her like toes dipped in the business, but she didn't actually have like an actual part in the business.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember when it first got started, I wanted to be a part of it. I saw how much workload, and I wanted to contribute. I knew that I could help in either small or big way, and he was very reluctant initially, and then once the business was just growing out of control, that's when he gave in, and he's like, yeah, come be a part of it. And then I wondered,
So,
why was I so eager to do this?
so for me, the odd turning point for me making that decision, it wasn't just because we were super busy. For sure, that was part of it, and having somebody I could trust and rely on and know has like everybody's best interest in mind. I mean, for sure, I don't want to discount that. But the actual trigger for me that I don't even know if I mentioned to you was that I was keeping you away from your like involvement in the business because I felt like obviously it could lead to all sorts of conflict between us during work and so on. And then what kind of clicked was two things. One, I you said something that made me believe that you might have thought I didn't want you part of the business because I didn't think you were capable of being part of the business. Like you might not be smart enough or like capable enough to do it. So then at that point I was like, oh, if that's what you think, then all right, here, just come and enjoy it. And I know you're capable enough. That wasn't the reason. And, again, going back, like the actual reason was just not wanting to bring the stressors. But then the turning point with that became the idea that, well, she's dealing with the stress, but almost like from further back, which I felt like was even more annoying because you're hearing about things and you're wanting to help, but then you're not able to help. And that to me seems like it probably is a more frustrating position than actually getting in and being able to affect some change.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely part of it. There was, because of the rate at which the company was growing, there was a lot of stress, and I would constantly hear about it. But it is very different, and it is nicer when you are not involved every day, all day. You're with your partner, and you're just hearing about it. So it's not like you can both go do your separate jobs and then talk about it in the evening. It's like it's always there. The problems are always there. They're affecting you all day. But communication is really, really important when it comes to working with not just your partner, but just your team, your employees.
Yeah, so I mean, on the communication, I think the foundation, if we kind of get into what I think stood out to me as very, very important, was our business had systems in place. So it obviously had Tint Wiz in place. It had systems in place. So what that meant was when a phone call came in, there was a standard procedure of what happens to that phone call, what you say to the customers, the notes you take, how you put it into the system, how you schedule a consultation, and so on. So that just enabled her and other team members to be able to do their job effectively without having to come to me. They didn't have to ask me, hey, can we do a consultation then? Or hey, do you think we can do this job? Or hey. It was, she knew what to do. And that meant that I could be handling something else. And that also provided some separation because if I was handling something that might have had me at like a stress level 10, she is just having a question. Her not having to come ask me that question keeps her away from stress level 10, which is totally unnecessary. So everybody doesn't need to know about everything going on in the company. So if I'm hypothetically dealing with a scenario where a customer might want a refund or a customer is not happy with their project, it doesn't benefit the person that's answering the phone, scheduling consultations, to feel that burden on them. So those divisions of tasks and how things got handled, I think were key for me. Is there anything that stood out to you as like something that you felt like we did really well on in that aspect?
Everything. Yeah, like you said, just keeping things separated was very helpful. Very helpful. I was in the office, and well, we were both in the office, but I was answering phones, training, and he would do other things, so that kept us separated. Um, but yeah, I just like.
Pick so.
Oh.
So yeah, let's go backwards a little bit to the roles. So the role Betsy came onto the business was at first admin. She was answering phones and helping with emails, and then also helping and train the additional hires, the additional admin. So she became the eyes in the office to, make sure that there's obviously the level of productivity we could see in the app. We could see how quickly questions were answered or how quickly calls were answered and how many things got scheduled and so on. But she became that bridge to, hey, I have to put an ad out to hire somebody. Somebody has to actually put that ad out, and somebody has to actually talk to those people, and so on. So there was those little jobs that somebody had to do, and when you're operating at 120%, it's difficult to find time. And then answering those phones, and really I feel like she helped set the tone for what the standard was for how you deal with customers and how polite you are and so on. And then from there it evolved from the, I guess, admin, answering phones, sending proposals through Tint Wiz, answering emails, to then doing sales. So that office experience, if you can handle the emails, if you can answer the phone calls, and if you can sell jobs over the phone and through email, then for sure you can drive out somewhere and measure windows and sell the jobs in person. So that was that. Was there any, I guess, out of those two positions, that you were in the office, you were out of the office, did you find working together easier or more difficult in one or both of those, or what did you find was a better fit?
I really enjoyed going out and doing sales. I liked going to new places, interacting with people, being out of the office. It was just a change when I started doing sales. I think it was maybe like a year and a half, 2 years after. And at that time, we had a really good staff, and I felt comfortable leaving the office and leaving them behind to answer the calls when I wasn't there. So I really, really enjoyed going out, making sales, and just stepping away from the office. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah. So what would you say, looking back, what are the most stressful moments that stand out to you, just in general, whether I was related or the cause or just within the business? What were those high stress moments that you remember?
So the high stress moments were it was almost every day. I can't specifically point out one specific incident, but when you're running a business, you are the person that's in charge. You're the one that has to resolve the problems. You can't turn to somebody and ask them to please fix it for you. You're the one that has to resolve it. And we had crews that were going out to projects sometimes 5, 6 in the morning. So every day, just waking up and looking at the phone, whether it was a missed call or a text message, that was very stressful. Just waking up and being unsure of what the day was going to bring.
Yeah. And, in retrospect, that's one of those things where, like, I'll say, when we talk about getting bigger, sometimes people say, like, I want to be bigger. I want to be bigger. It's not really necessarily about bigger. It's about building the business that suits your lifestyle. And those are things like you find out later on. So if you like that sort of thing, if you like getting a lot of phone calls, if you like, having all that interaction, then having a lot of people around is a great business for you. And then sometimes you can build a big business on a lower amount of transactions. And really so I'll give you an example of like a way we used to handle things that was much different than the companies our employees previously came from, that stands out. So we had a very small office. It was basically inventory, places to answer phones, and then printers. But it wasn't even intended to be that. It was really just a place to store film, and we stuffed everything in there afterwards. So it was a small space. And, first thing in the morning, we didn't have installers showing up at the shop. First thing in the morning, they were commuting straight from their home to their job. Now, one thing that stood out was, they would tell me, hey, this is so much better than where I worked previously. And the reason being because they would have to every morning go to the shop, pick up their work order, pick up their film, and go to the job. So what that made me imagine was 10 or 12 installers all in the same area, all trying to park their vans outside, all rushing in, all comparing their work orders, all scrambling for film, all giving their opinion on their jobs, and then leaving every single day. And, while, we definitely had, phone calls and so on come in early morning, those are things that were able to at least be minimized, because for the most part, everything was, taken care of beforehand. And it's, it alleviated that influx of people in the morning and so on. So, to your point, definitely the on call. So that was another strategy, was if you have your hours from 7 in the morning till 7 p.m. and if you're open 7 days a week, you get more business. But that also does put that extra strain on you, and it does take away from those off hours that you may think are off hours that turn into phone rings. So that's the give or the take. What was there any moments that stood out, like conflict between like me and you, or anything that, I don't know, any scenarios that might have happened where you felt it might be a good learning experience as far as like dealing with like the relationship, or before, after? Any questions?
No, I feel like I put that in the back of my mind. There were some instances where it was stressful, but you were very patient and you're a great listener. So I think that's important, is being a great listener, listening to your partner, and maybe you trying to empathize with the way that they feel, is very helpful. So you were.
Well, I think something that's important is like you have to realize that if just because you're the quote unquote boss, or just because you've been doing it the longest, or just because maybe you know everything, like you have to empower the people working around you. So like you might know a little bit better way. You might be able to fix every single thing somebody does by like 5 or 10%, but that also may break down their confidence and keep them from ever really like growing into their own, or like everybody has their own strengths, and maybe somewhere that you're able to identify they could be better, the growth would actually come from finding where they're doing a really good job and helping them understand what a great job something they're doing is, instead of just focusing on something they're not doing as perfect as could be. And I don't know, I think that's something that I realized like later on in life, in the last few years, was, and like with the window tint business, it was growing so fast that honestly it just felt like, hey, this is one of those businesses you can't lose your shit anymore. You're not 20 years old, you can't lose your shit. Nobody's out there to take your shit. Nobody's out there, like, just because the business is doing well, or just because it's growing, or just because you're successful, or whatever it is, it doesn't mean that anybody needs to hear your shit. It doesn't mean that you need to lose your temper. It's not an excuse for anything. So like I wouldn't want to be around anybody like in a bad mood, or I don't want anybody blowing up at me. So it really comes back to that: treat other people how you want to be treated. We all hate when like you're around somebody who doesn't let you do what you feel like you can do. Like you can do something really well, but somebody wants to kind of stand over you and tell you not to do it that way, and how frustrating that is. And ultimately that leads to nothing getting done that well. So that was kind of my North Star in trying to focus on what people did well. And that's not to say that we didn't give a lot of people shots in the office and shots to work for the company, that like maybe I was focusing too much on what they did well and not on what they didn't do well. But that's as easy as firing somebody, which isn't that easy, but is that easy in a way. It's worth trying. Or
yeah, absolutely. You have to have the right team, and just you have to be good at recognizing when somebody isn't good for your team and letting them go. Because if you let somebody stay on that it's just not the right fit, you're losing out, they're losing out. So it's not easy letting people go, but you just have to. Yeah,
there's superstars out there. So when you can settle for somebody who's mediocre, or somebody who's slightly like below average, you're just putting up with it, like you're missing out on a superstar because of that. And yeah, it takes work to find superstars, but you have to think about it. Like, I'm not a sports person, but if you think about it, the analogy still would be like a basketball team. If I'm gonna have a team and I can put 5 players on the court, I don't want weak players. I can't have excuses for 5 of my players. I can't say, well, this one, I've known for a long time, and this one, and this one, because at the end of the day, we're going to be the worst team in the league. So you've got to look at your team. You've got to see who deserves to be on that team, who's the most valuable player now, who's the best rookie, who's coming up, who works well as a team, who the team leaders are, and put together the best team, because that's the difference between like a championship or, like just garbage. So is there anything that, like, looking back at the different staff that we've run through, any um, commonalities between that you saw, like, as an indicator of, hey, that's a sign of a good uh, coworker or teammate versus, oh, that person probably is not going to work out?
I think when looking for somebody, one thing that is left out is doing um, checking their references. I think if you check somebody's references, you could really save yourself a lot of hiring somebody that's just not fit for your job. If it's somebody that wouldn't show up or that left on bad terms from their previous employment, I think that would be a red flag. So checking their references, and I think
Yeah,
that's a big one.
that's a good one. And checking references takes time and it takes a little bit of energy. It's definitely worth it, but it's part of what you have to realize, which is hiring is not nothing. It's a job on its own. Hiring, training, putting the right ad out, getting the right responses from people. You're selling yourself to people. Like, they're potentially making a commitment for years of their short life on this earth with your company. So, you have to make that opportunity attractive to them. And then you have to be able to vet the people that are going to be good fits. And some of that is going to be trial and error. You can't expect to figure it out beforehand completely. So you have to be ready to hire quickly, fire quickly, and get better at it. So every time you fire somebody, you know what to look for, in the next person, and what to look for in the next person you hire and you don't hire. So it's a learning experience. And I feel like hiring is never, like, it's something you have to buckle down and just know that you're going to get better and better, but you have to keep doing it. Can't give up, and don't start that it's the generation bullshit, because it's not the generation.
Yeah, and when you do find somebody that's good, people want to feel valued. They want to feel appreciated. Don't mistreat people. Let them know that you value them. A lot of times, people don't quit their job; they quit their boss. So be good. Be good to your staff. Treat them with respect, and you'll be surprised at how much more you can get from a person that's happy as opposed to somebody that is unhappy, that thinks you're the absolute worst boss. So if you can make your staff happy, make them feel valued and appreciated, that will go a long way.
So Ricardo Pedroza asked, what was your process for new hires? So we'll give you the brief, like, the process, the rundown, and then I want to point out some things that I think were really, really important in being able to hire those people. So as far as ads go, we used Indeeds. I think we used Monster for a little while. We used Craigslist, but we relied heavily on word of mouth. So when we would hire somebody, we hired an amazing graphics installer that ended up running the graphics division and bringing on other people and so on. And, I found him on Craigslist, and he said, well, I have a full-time job, but I can do stuff after hours. So I said, cool. And we started scheduling jobs for people that wanted the job, like a graphic job. We'd be like, hey, you want to do late evening? And some businesses preferred it because they were closed. So that gave me a way to get this guy doing some jobs for us after hours. Next thing you know, he wanted to come work for us full time. And then we went from there. Other people were through, like, friends. And it's just a matter of putting the word out there and making a job that's super attractive. And that's really what I want to focus on, because the way I feel like we made it extremely attractive was, everything Betsy just mentioned as far as respecting everybody and creating a good work environment and so on. But some things that, like, I kind of laser focused in on was, I always wanted to make a scenario where the people coming to work for us could make more money than they ever expected. Okay, now that doesn't mean that we just spend a ton of money. That means that the job has to be framed in a way that lets them be so productive that we can afford to pay them more than they might have expected. So I'll give you an example. As an admin, your job was the position of an admin for our company was to answer phone calls, answer emails, kind of some miscellaneous office related. But In the time they weren't doing that, they were writing blog articles for our website and sharing those articles and job pictures on social media. So they knew, hey, when they have time, they're going to jump into Tint Wiz, they're going to grab pictures, they're going to grab details of the project, and they're going to write a blog. Now, what that did was that made them, number one, learn about projects. So it took them from being just admin to then having to dig deeper into projects and look at previous projects, see the pictures, see the before, see the afters, understand the film that was installed there, and then write about it. So then they have to research the film. And then what are they doing for us as a company? They're doing our marketing. Okay, so now you're talking about, you're not just an admin, we're not just paying you to answer phones and emails. Now we can afford to pay you based on, an admin. So it starts to then say, well, maybe I can afford to hire another person because maybe I don't have the phone volume right now, but it's a chance for them to train. So when we do have the phone volume, we'll be ready to go. And what is that? More marketing. As far as installers go, installers had one job for us. It was to install film. So they had the film, they had the iPad, they had Tint Wiz, they had their phone, and their job was to look at their jobs, go to the job, do the installation, and go to their next job. So the app allowed them to minimize drive time, and it allowed them to do us to schedule jobs for them back to back to back to back in the most efficient way possible. So if your installers are doing more jobs in a day and getting more square footage done, they can be paid, they can make more money in a day. And like those are a couple examples, I think that, just of how I think, at the end of the day, they're not going to come work for you just for money, but that's going to be a part of why they think I'm never leaving this place. I found some holy and heavenly place to work for. So making sure they can make a lot of money was, one. And the other one, for me was everybody needed to understand the company goals, the culture, what we found important, the way we expected to treat a customer, what went and what didn't go. For example, customer always has to be happy. There was no gray lines in the sand. Customer had to be happy, no matter what that is, no matter what that means. Like, customer had to be happy. And when everybody was on the same page, you're spending less time running around and fixing other people's problems and disciplining people and so on, because you just know the standard, So anything I left out? Or
you did really well.
So Ricardo, the question, the process for new hires really was, I would like, people did get hired in different ways throughout the process, but I personally, if I'm bringing somebody with no window film experience on, I like to put them in a position of an admin position, let them answer an email, because email has no pressure. There's no pressure in answering an email. So once you can graduate from answering emails correctly, you check them over, they hit send, they write them, they can look at past emails as examples. Once they graduate from that, then they can answer phones. Phones are a little more pressure. It's live, right? But they can always put them on hold. They can also always pass it off to somebody else. Once they can answer emails, they can answer phones. They probably sold some jobs over the phone. Now, if you teach them how to measure, and they understand basic sales in person, eye contact and so on, and presenting themselves, now you just have a consultant on your hand that can go out there, and they already know the product, they already know how it's sold, they know the deal, and they can get it done. So to me, that's kind of the evolution as an employee from admin to sales. And then from installer, it's bringing people on as a helper for your best installers, and then they get the hand for it, and with experience they want to do it. The ones that want to step up learn. And hiring experienced installers, I think, is also a great thing, because you get what you pay for. A lot of times you can give an experienced installer a job, it solves your problem, you move on to the next thing.
Yeah, with the installers, we had a couple installers who they would describe themselves as not being great at speaking English, yet they were still able to look at their jobs and go to the project and get everything done. And a big part of that was because of the app. They were able to go in there, see pictures, see the measurements, and I thought that was really, really cool that somebody that didn't speak the language very well was still able to go out, show up to their job, and get it done well, take photos of the project, because when an installer, so the process, the way that it went, the sales process, they would call in to the office, we would book a consultation, we would send out a consultant, and then when the consultant was there, they would take measurements documents, upload photos, give the client a proposal on site, get them scheduled on site, and then when the installer would go, they would complete the job, take after photos, and that was a project for us at the office because now we had a project that we could create a blog and have before and after photos, talk about what the client, what their goal was, why they were installing film, and then we had pictures to show, and then we had content for the website. So if somebody wanted to see, oh, what does this particular film look like? Well, we had a gallery on our website with with a ton of before and after photos, and that wouldn't have been possible that easily without the app.
Yeah, so to the point, like Cody just brought up, he said the app definitely eases the install process for someone who's solely an installer, especially if you have proper measurements, pictures of the scope, and so on. So, like you have to understand that in your memory you can go to a job and install it a couple days later and probably remember what was there. But if you're working as a team, some people are going to do there has to be a transfer of information, even if it's just the admin on the phone talking to the customer is asking questions. They need to be able to see what was the scope of the work and what was installed and what it looks like. So obviously the app bridged that gap. And then to your point, as far as like Spanish speakers, that was incredible. Like, because I mean, literally people that barely spoke any English and then had like a flip phone. We'd give them the iPad, we'd show them how to use it in like literally a couple minutes, and they were off on their own. And then they loved it because they didn't have to try and figure out what the job was. Nobody had to communicate with them. It was clear. The measurements are there, the pictures are there, and they would just go do the job. So, we would hear a little bit of that. I'm not a computer person. And we were like, well, we're a computer company, so get with it. And they were instantly a computer person. And the same goes with the English thing. I don't speak English. Well, you're speaking English now. So that was always the response. It was like, somehow you're speaking English now when they tell you they don't speak English. That's enough English. That's all you need. And there was no shortage of positive reviews, because at the end of the day, the customers would see the intention of the person and their organization and their happy vibe and everything. So like the language became not so important.
And I want to touch on one point that we left out when we would hire for an admin position. We would have people come in, and we did have a script that we would have them read to us so that we can see how they sound, their tone, and that was very helpful because we were able to gauge the person, their ability to like speak to the client. The number one thing is when people called in, just talk to them with enthusiasm. They're interested in your business. So that alone is major, that somebody wants to do business with you, that they want to give you their hard-earned money. So when they call in and they have questions, we were more than happy to answer them. We didn't have a limit. We weren't trying to get on and off the phone with somebody. If they wanted to talk for an hour and ask questions, we would talk to them for an hour and talk and answer questions. If they wanted to be scheduled right away, they would be scheduled right away. And then another thing is when the inquiries would come through the app from the website, we would call people in less than 1 minute. We would see the button pop up, you have a new inquiry, we would pull it up, pull up the map, see where they lived, what day they were interested in, and we would call them right away. And people were just blown away. They're like, wow, that was fast. And that wow factor was always very gratifying, just being able to hear that somebody is happy, because there are companies that do customer service very well, but there's also a ton of companies that their customer service is just terrible. So whenever you do business with somebody that is pleasant to deal with, I mean, that just goes such a long way.
Yeah, it gets us started on the right foot, because the second the customer, like, their impression of the person answering their phone is their impression of the company. And then the consultant shows up and they meet them, and it just changes the whole scope. And then it just comes down to, like, what's the other person look like that came to their house, if they got another quote, or what did the other person sound like, or did they tell them they had to get a call back? Like, you're gonna win The thing is, you always have to look at it like in a group of like 10 jobs. So let's say you do 10 quotes. You have 10 opportunities with a customer. You might win two of them just because you have the best reviews. You may win another one because of how cheery you sounded on the phone. You may win another one because you were available when they were calling. You may win another one because they had their proposal in a text message and an email instead of on a paper at their house, or because they were able to contact you after hours. There's so many little things that go into how you win a job. It's not one thing that makes you win all the jobs. It's doing everything right. And that's, not to make this about Tint Wiz, but that's where, like with Tint Wiz, look, if you're looking for a CRM, there's tons of CRMs. There's Square, there's, you can do things in QuickBooks, like there's endless places to store customers' information. And if you're looking to do things the exact way you're doing them now, then that's the way you should do them. What Tint Wiz offers is not doing the exact things doing the things you're doing now the exact same way, and it's not just a place to store your customers. It's a process from lead coming through your website or the phone all the way to invoicing, and that process is a customer experience and it's a company experience for you because it's pleasant along the way. So it really is not about looking at it and saying, well, I scheduled on Square, why would I schedule on Tint Wiz? Okay, but what happened after Square? Who was able to see that? Where did you put the pictures? Where did you send the quote from? How long did it take you to make an invoice after that? How fast can you pull up your customers on Square? Like, can you put videos on Square? How do you attach W-9s and other documents? And when you start to put all that stuff together and you put it in a system from start to finish, that's when the magic really happens, and that's when you start to understand, the whole like magic behind Tint Wiz, and it being beyond a CRM, because like I said, there's tons of CRMs, and it's not about having a CRM, it's about having a really, really smooth process from start to finish.
Yeah, and to touch up on that point, for the office, for example, it was very pleasant that if somebody called in and they had a question about their project and they were talking to Mark, they don't have to talk to Mark because we can pull up their information, pull up their project, there's notes, so we can pick up wherever they left off and answer any other questions. And that went a long way, not just for the customer, but for us in the office. We're busy, we're doing things. Now Mark is on the phone with somebody, he doesn't have to now add somebody to his call back list of, now I have to call this person back and answer their questions. So it was a teamwork, and training somebody was very, very easy. And like Erik mentioned earlier, from the office, so you would answer calls on the downtime, we would write blogs, so that's an opportunity for the admin to learn more about the film and just become more aware. So whenever somebody calls and they have questions, they can answer them. So overall, just it was very pleasant, not just for the customer, but also for the office.
Yeah. Because office frustration, like if you get a call from a customer, if you're the admin, you're answering phone calls. If you get a call from a customer and then you pass that message along to somebody else in the team, and then a day or two later, you get an angry call from that same customer and they're chewing you out because they didn't hear back from that other teammate, your coworker, like how annoyed do you now start to get with that coworker? And little by little, you build up a little resentment, and then all of a sudden you're frustrated. Why am I sitting here getting chewed out by the customer? Why isn't so-and-so doing their job? And like that, sometimes it just comes down to there's not an effective way to, first of all, maybe that callback could have been avoided to begin with. And then if, let's just say it was necessary, is there a central place to put those notes and put those reminders so that it's organized for everybody has access, so when things are taken care of, and you can follow up and so on. Cody Becker said, because you show up on time. That's another thing, having a proper schedule and having those confirmations and showing up on time, like those are huge. Those are showing up on time, such a controllable thing. So the best practice for showing up on time is we would always give the customer a 1 hour arrival window. So as a consultation, let's start. Consultation versus installation. Consultation, we would give a 1 hour arrival window, but as far as the expectation, it was always to show up at the very beginning of that arrival window. So if we said we'll show up between 8 and 9 a.m., we were showing up there at 8 a.m., 7:55. It was not 8:15. 8:15 was 15 minutes late for us, but it was 45 minutes early for the customer in their mind because we had an hour window. And then for installations, we would do a 2 hour arrival window, and that gave a little flexibility in completing the installation beforehand and giving the installer time to get to the next installation. And we would always block off a 2 hour window for consultations because you figure there's a little bit of drive time to that next consultation, and it gives the consultant an hour or so with the customer because there's no point of ever rushing them, whether they be on the phone or in person. So on time, definitely. So Cody said, do people actually read blogs, or are they used more or less as filler? Off topic. So Cody, people definitely read blogs. So here's the thing, is anybody sitting around on a Saturday pulling up a window tint blog? Absolutely not. But when they're looking up information to make a purchase for their home, they're going to first of all find what pops up. So what pops up are going to be websites that actually have blogs on the topic they're searching for. So if they're searching for security window film for your home and your website has a blog post about security window film for homes in that area, your website will likely be one of the first to pop up. So now they found you because of the blog. Now that blog it did its job because it got the customer to you. It lets them know about your service, but you'd be surprised the next thing they're going to do is they're going to read more because they want to be an educated customer. So they're going to read about it. So that's your chance to pre-sell them on the product and pre-sell them on you as a service, because next they're going to make their decision if it's worth contacting you, if they want to contact multiple companies, just your company, just other companies, and so on. So those blogs have a huge beneficial role. And then the next way that they benefit is, other than it bringing people to you, is it enables you, if you're talking to a customer, right, and you're on the phone and they're saying, yeah, I'd like some privacy, and you say, oh, absolutely, privacy. So what you're looking for is privacy from the outside looking in, but you want a clear view from the inside looking out, right, during the day. They say, yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, are you in front of a computer by chance? Because we do projects like this almost every day, and we just posted one on our website a couple days ago with pictures from the inside and out. And a lot of times they'll say, oh yeah, I saw that. That's what got me to call you. Or, oh, let me check that out. Or, wow. Or, hey, you have so much information on your website. So it's one of those things, you'll never know how valuable they are until you do them. And then you'll wonder why you didn't do it to begin with. So Christina said, how do you factor in how long a job will take you two as a team? And if this was answered already, sorry, I just got here. So never be sorry for asking a question. If you're asking it, it's a valid question. So the question is, how do you factor in how long a job will take you two as a team? So a consultation, we would always allow 2 hours. Okay, 1 hour is going to be used. The other hour is going to probably be drive time, give or take, and who knows what else. And if you get early to the job, cool. As far as installations go, I would try to group them to make it simple, because you're not going to, if you're trying to do exact measurements and calculations of time, that's probably not going to work out. But what I would do is group them into a 2 hour job, a 4 hour job, or a full day job. Okay, so if it's a couple windows, it's a 2 hour job. That includes setup, that includes a little bit of drive time, that includes cleaning and getting payment, the whole deal, the whole thing that they need to do. If they're done early, cool. If it takes a little over, cool. If it's a medium-sized job, 4 hours. That means they can do two of those in a day, because you could do 2 4 hour jobs. You could do a bunch of 2 hour jobs. And then if it's going to seem like possibly a big day, just allow the whole day. That way they're not rushing, because, at the end of the day, it's better they take their time than they have to rush out of there and maybe do a not so great job, or they have to cancel the next installation because what if the customer wanted to add more windows to the first installation? You run into stuff like that all the time. And the second customer doesn't understand that the first customer wanted to add more windows, and the first customer doesn't understand that you have another appointment, why you wouldn't do it now and why you want to come back. So just grouping it into 2, 4, or 8 hours to me made it real simple, because you're not left with people trying to try to overthink how long a job's going to take, because it could get a little crazy. So Jessica said, if you're trying to learn about window tint film, you sit around on Saturdays reading blogs, or so I've heard. Seems like I'm getting a subscription to Grammarly and write blogs, of course. Yeah, Cody. There's no right or wrong. Just get started. Write them when you have spare time. Don't judge your work. Just write them like you're talking to a customer. So you are talking to a customer. So pretend you're literally talking to a customer and either type it and transcribe it, or type it and type it, or say it and transcribe it, or type it and type it. But pretend you're talking to a customer. So if you have any questions, drop them in here and we will keep this rolling. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on today, since you have the chance to bring up anything you're unhappy with? To air your grievances now while we're live?
No. All of those McDonald's runs that we made.
Oh my gosh. The McDonald's runs after work, like there was just like, we were so exhausted for months. I remember telling a friend, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can eat McDonald's every day. I think it's fine. We've been doing it for a few months. I feel like it's fine. They have chicken and all that, and then like eventually you realize you're dying and you need good food.
Yeah. But so we used to live about 20 miles from when we first opened the office, about 20 miles away, but we live in LA, so during traffic time that could be an hour and a half to 2 hours, no exaggeration. So we would leave the house at 5:45, so that we could 5:45 a.m. to beat traffic. So we would get to the office around 6:30 a.m. and then we would try to wait out traffic. So we would leave around 8 p.m., but there was still traffic. So it would take us about an hour and 15 minutes. By the time we got home, it was 9:15. Who wants to cook at that time? So before hopping on the freeway, we would go to McDonald's, get some fries. I would get chicken nuggets. Occasionally, I would get their shake, like the strawberry shake, or their
get some chicken wraps for our puppy.
Yeah.
And it was a shit show of food. And I'm glad we're not eating that anymore, because it really does wear down on you. You don't realize that, you really are what you eat, and it takes a little while for it to feel it, but it was definitely not the greatest thing. So I want to answer a couple questions that were asked. Christine asked, did you guys work together tinting starting out? So I actually got started tinting, or started in the tint industry kind of through a marketing aspect and helping a great friend of mine. At the time, it was just a great friend, but now much more than that. And, he was a neighbor, and I kind of started helping him with like his website and marketing, and then it just evolved into different aspects of the business and so on. So, when it came to hiring installers or getting the job actually done, it was a process of hiring installers to do the job. I went on a couple consultations, sometimes because I got tricked into it by the customer, because I'd answer the phone and they would insist that I was the one who came out. So, that was that. But for the most part, I didn't do installations. I didn't do consultations. There's always installers out there willing to do the job. And I really, really believe in, you want to do what you're best at. So if you're best at installing film, you should be installing film. If you're great at managing people, you should be managing people, not installing film. And I'm not saying that I was great at managing people. I'm just trying to point different things out. If you're great speaking to customers, you may make a great salesperson. You may love installing film and not want to deal with customers, and you might be a better installer. So it's really, I think, better to identify the people's strengths and know yourself and be in the role that fits you best and go all in on that. Because a great salesperson could do 10 sales a day amazingly, or they could do 4 sales a day amazingly, and then maybe 10 emails so-so, answer 10 phone calls kind of grumpy, and so on. You know what I mean? So you don't want to give people jobs that they don't really enjoy when you can give them more jobs in the arena that they actually do enjoy. And she came, into it at the beginning. We mentioned, on an administrative level, and then went into the sales aspect. So never installing, but definitely up on ladders and roofs during the consultations. Any like ladder situations that you felt like you might have got in above your head with?
Oh yeah. So there's one that I'll never forget. It was a museum, and they wanted to get some skylights tinted, but in order for me to get to skylights to measure, they had a ladder inside, and it must have been about 35 feet. And the customer was like, oh, well, you have to go up, and are you okay doing that? I'm like, yes, I do this all the time. This is part of my job. Absolutely. Like, yeah, no big deal. So I'm going up the ladder, and, I can't show that I'm afraid. But yeah, I went up there, and it was,
Yeah.
it was quite the experience. But I know I was safe.
You're
and
safe
and
now.
we got the job, and it was $9,000. So
So Chad asked, he said, my wife wants me to send her to tint school so she can start tinting. What are your thoughts? I think my thoughts are, what's there to think about? She wants to go to tint school. She wants to start tinting. She just wants you to send her. That's a blessing. Like, send her to tint school. I mean, I don't know if she should work with you. I don't know you well enough to say if you should go out on a team, but if she wants to learn how to tint, there's no reason not for her to learn how to tint. That's amazing, and that's an opportunity. And it kind of rolls into Chamal's question, was how many guys per job? Chamal, I think it can be attractive. The idea of sending a team out there can be attractive. And you think, okay, 2 people, they can work together, they can divide and conquer and so on. Well, what we found was, best case scenario is 1 person. 1 person goes in there. 1 person's accountable for the job. It's 1 person. There's no excuses. There's no, well, the other guy was late. There's no, I worked faster. There's no, well, he did that window. He or she did that window, whatever it is. 1 person knows they're going to get in there. It's on them. They're not going to say, well, I worked slower because the other person was slower. There's so many freaking ways that 2 people make it worse than 1 person. 1 person should be your default. And that's why I suggested to Chad, hey, maybe your wife is a 1-person tint installer, because so don't worry if she's on your team or she's by herself, because you don't necessarily need to work side by side if that might be why you were questioning it. I think by default you want to go 1 person. Now, if there's a tall ladder involved, something that is safer with 2 people, if there's scaffolding, if there's extremely large windows, if there's stairs, then of course you want to send a second installer, and just be conscious of the 2 installers you send together. Make sure they're a good team. Make sure they understand that, who's accountable for what, and you do what you got to do. Send as many or as few as you need, but I highly recommend you send 1 at a time, like 1 when possible. 2 does not work as fast as 1, like separately. You know what I mean? They don't work faster together. Nobody works faster together. It's kind of a myth. It might happen once, but more times than not, you find conversation and so many reasons to send people by themselves. Cody mentioned Spike's definitely a great investment for jobs like that. Spike's a meter where you can attach it to your phone or iPad. You can measure. It's pretty darn accurate, not necessarily down to the inch, but when it comes to like skylights and things like that, you definitely Spike can save you a lot of headache. Jessica said, so I've tried super hard to install film. I suck at it. My bosses would love nothing more than me to learn to tint. My hands just don't work like that. Only Windows I'm good at are on a computer. Well, see, here's the thing, Jessica. Like, if you if you went to go work installing film, I'm guessing that your bosses both install film, and I'm guessing that would leave nobody to do what you're doing right now, which is behind the computer. So, if your specialty is behind a computer, you need to be all in on that behind a computer. And what you can do from behind a computer is you can hire an installer, and you can hire somebody who's not an installer and send them to tint school, and they can become an installer. And then you could supply your boss with 3 or 4 tinters, and better a system to get more tinters than you, because once you become a tinter, who does the other stuff? And then, your boss is getting 1 tinter instead of a system, a factory of tinters. So it's really about that. You have to look at the jobs, like whether you're doing that to yourself or you're doing that to a staff member. You have to understand, like, is this going to plug the hole, or is this going to be a solution? And if you plug the hole, eventually you can't go anywhere because your fingers are all stuck in holes, and now you can't do anything. And eventually the whole shit comes down on you, or you still plug holes forever with your toes. But if you try to take a step back and say, you know what, we're going to find a better solution. The solution's putting somebody in place to solve this problem long term, or I'm going to spend time and I'm going to develop a system and process for hiring, and then I'm not going to have to, beg my family to come work for me or whatever it is. That's a long-term solution. That's the difference. And that's why, a lot of times you get people, like, I'll see people say, when I get bigger, then I'll put that system in place. And what you don't understand is when you are bigger, you will not have the time to put that system in place. So it's like saying when your car goes faster, you'll make it faster. Well, if you started from the beginning with the right platform, you won't be fixing holes. I guess I don't know if that analogy made perfect sense, but what I mean is, you're putting together pieces of your business, like pieces of the puzzle. So you want to put together strong pieces one at a time and have those strong pieces, because then you can rely on those later on. If not, every time you go faster, everything else is going to break, and you're going to be frustrated and circling back and missing out on the races, or in other terms, missing out on the jobs, and just frustrated. So you want to put the systems in place when you have time now, because it never gets easier to put those things in place later. It never gets easier. Cody asked if we did the broom challenge yet. It took me a couple days to figure out what the broom challenge was. I kept seeing brooms standing up and I didn't understand what the hell is going on. So no, I haven't done the broom challenge yet. Have you done the broom challenge yet?
No, but I'm gonna do it later.
I feel like the broom challenge, I feel like I find out about the challenges after they're already over. So I'm not sure at what stage everybody is in with the broom challenge, but based on how many I've seen, I feel like maybe
we did do a few challenges at our office when we had our window tint company. I don't remember
we did the mannequin challenge.
Yeah, the mannequin challenge. That was so much fun to do.
Yeah, we did the mannequin challenge, and we did it a couple times. Yeah, the challenges are a great way to engage your audience if you have the time and if it fits your personality.
And
I like
your
it.
office staff.
So Maverick asked a great question. He said, Eric, I charge $25 estimate. When I get to the job, that $25 goes for the install. Would you recommend still doing that or not? So he's asking, he charges $25 to go out on the consultation, and then he's saying, hey, if you go ahead and go through with the job, then that $25 goes to the job. So just covering a couple fees. Would you recommend still doing that or not? Also, depending on the job, for example, I leave gift cards, Starbucks, $5 gift cards, ceramic 20, 25, and so on. And he starts from $9 a square foot. Is that a good start? I'm in Portland, Oregon. So here's the deal: $25 consults, and then he comes up. Stop that now. Like that should have been the last one you ever did. Whichever you did last, that should be your memory of it, because what you're creating by charging $25 is you're creating an opportunity for me to go, oh, our consultations are completely free. No, we just come out there, we bring you samples. Yeah, we actually bring you samples, and those samples are yours to keep. We bring you all the information on the film, we take the measurements, we bring you, we'll take care of everything. It's absolutely free. We're actually going to be in your area. No, we'd never charge for that. That's crazy. How does that make you look? You're charging. Like that $25 that you're getting, it averages out. So you're going to go to jobs and not sell the job. You're going to go to jobs and the windows are not going to be installed yet. And you're going to be like, why did I just drive out here? People are going to go, oh, it's just this one window. Oh, I didn't think it would be more than $100. But here's the deal. You have to go to all of them to get everything out of them. So you have to go to those shitty consults. You have to go to those cheap people to find the people who are wowed by you, and the people who want all the windows done, and the people who recommend their neighbors, and so on. So you have way more to gain by going out there for free and being efficient in it. So yeah, you don't want to run around. You can't run across town every day and just do consultations. So that's where it becomes important to say, absolutely, our consultations are free. We're going to be in your area next Thursday between this time and this time, or this time and this time. And you're putting yourself when you're going to be in the area. And when you're grouping your consultations in an area, and that's a huge part of the beginning of Tint Wiz. We have a video on our YouTube channel as the featured video, and it talks about how Tint Wiz was started. That was the first feature in Tint Wiz. So it was to solve my problem, which was I didn't understand LA. I didn't understand LA traffic, and I didn't understand that a mile could be an hour. So I needed a map. So when I'm talking to somebody and I type in their address, I need you to show me a dot on the map. And then I need to see other dots on where we're going to be. So I can go through the calendar and see when that dot is near the other dots, because then I know it's close by. And that's how the calendar works. And that's why the calendar and the schedule are next to each other. So you can see where your dots are going to be, where your consults and installs are going to be on what day, and you can fit them in next to each other. Because when you're efficient, you're going boom, boom, boom. You're knocking out a bunch of consultations in one area. You're making sales. You're vibing off of it. You just made a sale at one. Hey, I just came from your neighbor's house. This is what they're getting, and so on. That even just rolls over into your sale versus you running from the shop. You were just tinting a car. Now you're getting in the car, driving across town, quoting a home, and then you got to get back to the shop because you got to do another car. And you can't run your schedule like that. That's your schedule running you instead of you running your schedule. So it's all about efficiency. It's all about efficiency, and it's about that process, and it's about just trusting, doing that process and trusting it. Trust that it'll work out. Trust that if you treat every customer the same and you quote them the same, you don't judge if you think they have money or if they want to pay for it, or you don't offer them the cheaper solutions because you don't think they can afford the better solutions, or maybe they're not interested in it. You don't take it at face value and they tell you, isn't tint, and you go, no, it's not, let me explain, and you take that as a teaching opportunity. When you do that to every single customer, that's how you start getting positive, like extra positive reviews. That's how you sell more jobs. That's how you go, I can't believe I used to sell jobs for 9 a square foot, now my average is 13 a square foot, just because. That's when you stop caring about what any other tint company's doing, and you could give any F's. If ASWF came in at $4 a square foot, you don't care. That's not you. They don't want to go with that film simply off the service and the person wanting to charge them for a consult and all these other things. You see what I mean? So like, you have to just find the best practices and trust the process from, A to Z. And Justin Kinney asked, what is Tint Wiz? Tint Wiz is an all-in-one, business process for, it's an app for window tint businesses. You can tint anything you want. You can quote anything you want, even beyond window tinting. It's for automotive, residential, marine, everything. And it takes you from lead from your website or from a phone call all the way to invoicing, everything in between, with a lot of features you're probably familiar with. Probably saves you a little bit of time, like scheduling and so on. And then some you're probably are going to be new to you, like the digital proposals and the different solutions you can offer, and the way you can add pictures to your proposals and so on. And those different tweaks within that process are a game changer. So it's available in the App Store for iPhone and for Android. And to answer the next question, it's completely free to try for 30 days. That is all inclusive for your business. So you can have 10 employees on it. You can have 2 employees. You can have 50 employees. You can have 1,000 customers. You can do whatever you want with it per business. It's going to be free for 30 days, and then it's going to be $100 unlimited usage after that per business. So yeah, you can grow with it. It'll help you grow. Even if you're a one-man band, there's no better helper than a silent one in your pocket that can do the work of many, many, many people that shows up to work every day and only costs you $100 per month. So
and works 24 hours a day.
It works 24 hours a day. And when you start getting app notifications that say your proposal was approved for $1,800, and you see when the person wants to schedule, and you schedule them within a few seconds, like, that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Like when you see new lead came in, you tap it and you're calling them and they go, wow, that was quick. And you go, yeah, absolutely. How can I help you? And you start winning more jobs because of how quickly you're getting in touch with the customer. And they stop calling more companies because you got in touch with them instantly. So one little cheat is like, you have to answer your phone. Somebody has to answer your phone. Somebody has to answer your phone, and you have to get back to your leads quickly, because if they submit a lead online, you want that lead to go directly into Tint Wiz with the lead form, because that means you're not checking your email once a day. You're calling leads back as they come in instantly. And that can be the difference between them making another phone call to another tint company, or them saying, okay, I got it solved. I already talked to a guy, he was great. Or I talked to a lady, she was perfect. She's coming out, blah, blah, blah. We got this taken care of. Done. Or maybe they call the next company, they don't pick up, and they're like, forget it. I already got this taken care of. Those are those little intangibles that you can't see ahead of time until you're actually doing it and you see it happen. So Cody Becker said, how hard is it to get digital documentation designed sort of like an app, something we can throw a tablet or a customer, have a customer sign? So don't think of it from the aspect of how hard is it. Think about what's the easiest way to make it happen. So sometimes not going like full digital can be an easier way. Sometimes partial. So here's an example. You can make a simple PDF. You can put it as an app on your phone. Okay, each PDF will be its own little, like its own button on your phone. It's just a PDF. And when you open it, because you have a PDF viewer on your phone, you can sign it, save it, and then upload that file into Tint Wiz. Now, to me, that's pretty easy. And you could say, well, what if I design an app beyond that? I'd say, well, why? That was so easy. Why do you now need to make an app that you're adding complication to it? But if that didn't sound easy enough, here's what I would do. Print out 1,000 copies of that form, bring it to your customer, have them sign it, take a picture of it on the clipboard, upload it into Tint Wiz, and throw that piece of paper in the trash. From there, you can take that step up and put that form on your iPad and eliminate that piece of paper. But I like to start things at a basic level sometimes, before, when it's something new, start it at that basic level and just evolve it. So I think that the best way to save a document is take a picture and upload it straight into Tint Wiz, and you're done, because then it's there forever. It's there as a picture. It's easy to pull up and so on. Once you start getting into apps and signing and transferring PDFs and so on, I don't even like opening PDFs. Pictures open in 1 second. PDFs take like, a little bit longer. So I hope that helped. But with that said, I know we've talked about like check-in forms for automotive, which are going to be added to Tint Wiz. So if you have any ideas for forms that you currently use in your business or you think are great ideas, jump in our live chat, send us that information. We'll add it to the development list, and it becomes a new feature. So, digital release waiver is what I'm getting at. So, digital release waiver, here's how we handled it. Okay. A systematized digital release waiver, I could see why you'd want to do that. But to me, one of the easiest things we did was we had a couple lines that we had them pre-written so we could copy paste them. And we would shoot an email over to the person and say, hey, so-and-so, we're confirming your installation for this date and this date. Please note that you agree that, you accept full liability for any glass breakage because we're installing so-and-so film on your windows and it's an incompatible glass type. Please reply to this email to confirm. And when they reply to that email, you have your confirmation and you're done. That email always exists. And I'm just saying, you're making it really easy for your customer, because all your customer has to do is reply. If you're sending me a PDF that I have to digitally respond to, out of 100 people you send it to, how many people are going to go, I can't get it to open on my phone. I can't get it to work on my computer. I don't know how to sign this. I don't know what to do. Can you print it? Like, I just want to avoid all that, and just simply sending them a couple lines that they can understand in plain English and having them say, yes, I understand, to me is the easiest way. So we just crossed the magical hour mark. And while I wait to see if we have any other questions, I would like to note that, first of all, thank you everybody who joins us in these live streams. This week especially, we're doing a live stream Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday. So yesterday we did it with Patrick Fransco. If you missed that one, it was all about the Window Film Pros Consumer Awareness Program. That is something that you can sign up for right now. The video is all about what that program is, how it benefits tinters, and why I definitely believe everybody should be a part of it, especially for that backlink, because that backlink is super valuable, but for all the feel-good reasons as well as the actual leads that may come into your business. So check that out. It's up on our YouTube channel. It's also up on Facebook. Today, the episode, you just watched it. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Dean Mitchell from Expel. So every single time I've spoken to anybody about window tint in any aspect, like any form, whether it be on Tint Wizdom, you can find Expel coming up in that live stream or in that conversation. So if you look back and any single live stream that we've spoken about a window film, somebody brought up or inferred something about Expel. And that's because Expel is doing some amazing stuff out there, both with their products and with their customer service and their branding and so on. And Dean Mitchell's a perfect example of that. Anytime Expel's brought up online, somehow people have something great to say about Dean as well. So I'm super excited to get Dean on tomorrow, talk to him more about that, and see what we can all learn from what's going on in Expel, because it's obviously incredible. If you follow their stock, that speaks for itself. It's almost, it's over doubled since it was on the stock exchange last year. So tomorrow, Dean Mitchell, and then on Thursday we have on Audra Lay from SolarGuard. So we're going to be talking about SolarGuard, and one of the things that attracted me to SolarGuard and I have questions about specifically is I want to know more about their consumer-facing awareness program that they launched last year with the Vampire. And they, kind of had like a quirky way of releasing that, as stolen film from their manufacturer. They started releasing footage of somebody stealing it in the night. Then it turned out to be the Vampire, and he was the new spokesperson. I've seen videos of them with a Fisker in the middle of the desert with a Vampire, and I want to know more about that and how that looks facing the consumers, because they are one of the few companies, manufacturers, that are doing advertising at such a scale and consumer facing. So I really want to dig into that, find out more about that and the company as a whole, her role. So that is going to be on Thursday. So join us again Wednesday, join us again Thursday, And then next week we'll be doing a Monday through Thursday again. And I'll announce all those guests next week. And it looks like that's it. So if you have any questions after this is over, drop them in the comments. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much for watching, and it was nice being here, hanging out with you all. I'm usually in the comments, and today I'm on the screen.
Have a great evening, folks. Thanks for watching.
Bye.